It's one more morning in Madrid, and individuals are carrying on with their day-to-day routines. Sales rep Sergio is calling a client to enlighten them regarding his most recent products. Transient Israel is thrown out by the police for resting on the roads once more. Betting junkie Trini requests that the merchant put the present costs on her bill, and youthful Elena is informing her companion on the telephone concerning the date she's happening with a person she met on the web. At the point when Elena's telephone runs out of battery, she chooses to enter a bar to have an espresso and inquire as to whether Representative Satter might have a charger he can loan her. Right behind her, a hacking wiped-out man likewise enters the bar and hurries to the washroom, driving proprietor Impro mad in light of the fact that individuals are continuously utilizing her bar's latrine without purchasing anything. Israel unexpectedly bursts in light of the fact that he realizes Impro will take care of him free of charge, and his steady, boisterously citing of the holy book is a disturbance for everybody there, including a long-term bank representative, a street cleaner, and previous cop Andres. However, it doesn't appear to irritate Nacho, since he has his earphones on. Sergio and Trini come into the bar, and Trini is prepared to burn through all the cash she has left on the bar's gambling machine. At the point when the bank representative becomes weary of hanging tight for his morning meal, he chooses to leave without eating. However, when he ventures outside, he's shot. Everybody in the roads takes off and every one individuals in the bar alarm, despite the fact that it takes Nacho a second to get on to what's happening, since he didn't hear the shot. There's no sign inside the bar, meaning they can't call the police, so the street cleaner chooses to go out in any case. Sadly, while he's keeping an eye on the bank representative, he's shot too. Israel giggles and keeps on citing the holy book, as the others frenzy and hurl themselves on the floor for good measure. As a matter of fact, Israel needs to leave since he has church today. Yet Impro persuades him to remain by offering him more food and promising to converse with the cleric later. Trini cautiously goes after the remote and turns on the television. Yet as she rides through the stations, the gathering sees something exceptionally strange. No one is discussing the passings that simply occurred in the roads of Madrid, which is amazingly dubious. While everybody quarrels over it, Trini looks outside and finds something much more dubious. The bodies are gone, and there isn't so much as a drop of blood left. They don't have the foggiest idea about why someone stopped by to get the bodies, however didn't mind them, and the gathering attempts to keep itself occupied by staring at the television or visiting while at the same time sitting tight for help. Satter starts tossing insane hypotheses around, contemplating whether this is a fantasy or on the other hand on the off chance that they've been stole by outsiders, or even the public authority. After Impro slaps him to check out, the gathering begins going once again current realities. Elena thinks perhaps the two people were associated, yet it doesn't sound likely for a street cleaner and a bank representative. Sergio, then again, understands that perhaps not a lawbreaker is doing the shooting, it's the police. They may have gotten a clue saying a significant lawbreaker is inside the bar, yet they don't have any idea what its identity is, so they shoot anybody that emerges. On the off chance that it's somebody extremely hazardous like a fear-based oppressor conveying a bomb, they can't gamble with letting them out. It would make sense of why the region has been emptied, and why the police aren't barging in to get them. As everybody talks about this hypothesis, Nacho chooses to conceal his pack before they think that it is dubious, yet at the same he's found in the act. Sergio and Andres hold Nacho, while Satter gets the sack. Yet he wouldn't even play with the possibility of opening it. Impro takes it from him and opens it herself, tracking down a lot of garments in a hard circle. Nacho swears it's simply work records. Yet as another contention starts over how to manage it, Elena takes it, tosses it on the floor, and over and again steps on it until it's annihilated. Then she calls everybody infants for fixating on stupid hypotheses. Notwithstanding, Nacho is furious that he was found dubious due to his facial hair, and in light of the fact that he disregarded the shot. In this way he focuses at Sergio's bag to make a similar allegation. Impro takes the bag and Sergio attempts to get it back, causing to Satter hop in to protect his boss, and Sergio hits him, all things being equal. Frightened, Andres takes out a weapon to make him stop, and everybody is stunned to the point that Israel takes the risk to take the bag. In the wake of citing the book of scriptures once more, he opens it, just to uncover a lot of unmentionables that is the item Sergio sells. At that point, a strange commotion comes from the washroom. They had overlooked the debilitated man. The entryway is locked, so Andres shoots it to open it, and they find the man on the floor twisted around the worker with draining ears and a peculiar looking needle close to him. Abruptly, another commotion definitely stands out. this opportunity approaching from the roads. It's a truck conveying exceptional covered specialists that overlook the gatherings weeps for help and, all things considered, stack up tires outside the bar to then light a fire. This fire lets out a weighty, dim smoke that shows up on television. The commentator discusses a major fire in Madrid, so the gathering understands this has been begun by the public authority to conceal the killings. The wiped out man then emerges from the washroom in a horrible condition. He drops his telephone and tells them, "Don't contact me," before he tumbles to the floor and passes on. Nacho gets the man's telephone, and by taking a gander at the photos, they figure out he had a place with the military and used to work in Africa. The photos likewise show a gathering of men wearing hazardous materials suits. Presently all that it's unmistakable. This man has carried a destructive infection with him. That is the reason the region has been emptied and anybody from the bar is shot. Probably, every one of them are as of now contaminated, and the public authority is concealing everything. Believing they will bite the dust, everybody returns to attempting to keep themselves occupied while pausing, and Israel readies the wiped out person for burial service petitions. Elena and Nacho have the debilitated man's telephone, which just has 10% battery. The television is lying. Believing Nacho's not being sufficiently pressing, Satter takes the telephone from him and starts frantically shouting for help, which makes the colleague believe it's a trick and hang up. Nacho doesn't believe there's sufficient battery left for another call, and the two men start battling about the telephone until the seat cushions and they fall, pushing everybody back all the while. This makes Trini hit the gambling machine and hit big stake, inspiring it to oust a lot of coins that Israel starts getting. Andres needs a turn with the telephone straight away, yet Empro cautions him not to contact it, since it used to have a place with the wiped out man. As a matter of fact, Empro believes everybody that contacted the wiped out man should avoid her. Andres and Sergio concur with her, figuring safeguards ought to be taken, so they take off from the gathering that contacted him to stow away with Empro behind the counter. Elena thinks this is crazy since they've been together throughout recent hours, and they've all contacted one another. However, the triplet is firm on their choice. As a matter of fact, Andres compromises them with his weapon to make them go down the storeroom and take the debilitated man's body with them. Nacho would rather not go yet adjusts his perspective when Andres shoots the gambling machine to show how serious he's being. Israel is taking as much time as necessary also, too caught up with citing the holy book. Accordingly, Empro persuades him to go by giving him 2 jugs of liquor. Inside the filthy old storeroom, the gathering visits to relax. Yet Trini is claustrophobic and begins to overreact. She climbs the steps and starts raising a ruckus around town without any result, and in her frantic thrashing, she unintentionally hits a container of jugs, breaking them. Nacho sees that there isn't a pool of fluid framing, and that implies there should be a channel that they figure out how to track down subsequent to shifting his stuff to the side. After they eliminate the top, they find it's associated with the sores and not extremely profound, so Israel volunteers to go down there. He removes his garments and abandons his sack of coins prior to covering his body with oil. Then, at that point, he endeavors to go down the channel. Regardless of how hard the others help him by pushing, however, the space is excessively thin for Israel, and presently he's stuck. Unexpectedly, they hear clamors coming from higher up. It appears to be a gathering has placed the bar and is shooting Empro, Andres, and Sergio. Then, they notice the temperature getting hotter and smoke coming from the entryway. A fire has been begun inside the bar to clean it. Going on like this, they'll suffocate soon. So Elena, Nacho, and Satter set up their solidarity to set Israel out of the channel up to permit air to roll in from the sewers. Trini's going through one more mental episode and attempts to open the entryway, getting her hands consumed simultaneously. They cover her ignites with oil and wrap her hands with bathroom tissue, while trusting that things will quiet down. When they hear no more commotions higher up, Nacho opens the entryway with a brush and finds the consumed bar, however no indication of the bodies. The entryway has been taped out by the specialists, meaning they can't understand what's happening inside. The gathering chooses to emerge from the storeroom, and Nacho tracks down Andre's weapon, so he conceals it in his jeans, regardless of whether the warm metal consumes his skin. Trini needs to head outside and request help. However, Nacho advises her that noteworthy their presence will just destroy them. Not a solitary one of them feel debilitated, which makes Nacho believe it's simply a question of remaining concealed for a couple of days, until the episode is neglected. All things considered, there's a lot to eat and savor the storeroom. An unexpected commotion frightens everybody. Except nothing remains to be stressed over, it's simply the debilitated man's telephone, which is getting a lot of messages. Elena looks at them and finds a companion is minding the person to check whether he's alright. It appears to be the man had a fever for a really long time. He was likewise mindful that he was being followed. He entered the bar searching for a restroom to infuse himself in secret, since he had taken an exploratory serum of some kind or another. It didn't deal with this man. However, for all intents and purposes, he had been wiped out for some time. Conversely, no one in the gathering has side effects yet, so there's an opportunity it might work for them. At that point, the telephone starts ringing. The individual from the message is presently calling. Nacho doesn't know whether they ought to answer, since it very well might be a snare, and it requires him such a long investment to conclude that the telephone's battery runs out. Satter runs higher up to check whether he can find a charger that fits when Elena remembers something. One of the messages expressed something around 4 portions left. The gathering checks the body and finds nothing, which inspires them to race to the washroom next. Israel arrives first, tracks down the container with the other 4 needles, and starts singing when he understands he has control over the gathering now. There are just 4 portions for 5 individuals, and keeping in mind that the gathering talks about how to continue, Israel infuses himself with 1, thinking that they'd remove the vagabond. Nacho takes out the weapon yet doesn't shoot in light of the fact that Elena brings up they'll be heard by the police outside. All things being equal, he hops on Israel to pummel him. Israel figures out how to overwhelm him and deals with the weapon. So when Satter attempts to recover the needles, Israel hits him, and the case falls into the storeroom. Trini surges ground floor and gets it, but since of her bound hands, she needs coordination and coincidentally drops the container in the sewers. Somebody more slender necessities to go through the opening, meaning their main choice is Elena. In the wake of removing her garments and covering her body with oil, Elena gets into the opening. Attempting to go down harms her thighs and makes her drain, yet the gathering continues to push until she goes through and falls into the filthy water. It doesn't take her long to recuperate the case of needles. However, she will not attach it to the wire Nacho is bringing down, since she realizes they'll utilize them all and leave her with nothing. Elena needs to be preferable over them, so she will not be utilizing one on herself either. However, to have a legitimate conversation about this, they'll need to descend as well. Elena goes investigating while the gathering utilizes a piece of line to make the opening greater. After a couple of turns, Elena finds a tempest channel and investigates concealing the needles in an opening in the wall. In the city, specialists and police are as yet encompassing the region and dealing with the bodies they recovered from the bar. Then, at that point, Elena returns to the storeroom opening, where she finds the men have previously come through and are currently helping Trini, whose thrashing makes everybody fall into the water and trying to get out okay. However, Nacho takes the risk to bounce on Israel to attempt to recuperate the firearm. A battle follows submerged, and after a couple of shots are discharged, Nacho comes out triumphant, saying it was Israel that did the shooting and vanished in the water after Nacho took the firearm from him. The gathering thinks Nacho killed Israel, who is acting increasingly more savage constantly. Worn out on everybody acting insane, Elena demands Nacho to discard the firearm in the event that he believes her should accept them to the needles. Rather than doing as she says, Nacho takes steps to kill Satter. Presently, Elena must choose the option to take them to the wall from prior. On their way there, Trini utilizes the pack with coins she took from Israel before and drops coins on the ground so they can view as their way back. At the point when they arrive at a dim passage, Trini shouts out, imagining that Satter is pushing her when it's really her driving him into the water. Then she professes to attempt to help him out when in truth, she's getting his head and holding him down to suffocate him. Nacho discharges a shot to get some light and sees what Trini is doing, so he rapidly bounces into the water to take care of Satter. Then, at that point, they move to a passage with all the more light, while keeping Trini at gunpoint. However, Nacho wouldn't even come close to shooting her. Trini admits she could do without to be seen, and she snatches the weapon, taking it around the bend to end things herself. The leftover triplet tracks down the needles and splits them between them. Yet before they can do anything, they hear the sound of coins being thrown. They go to see what's happening and track down Trini's body with coins over her eyes. This ends up being a snare, in light of the fact that while they're occupied by Trini, Israel approaches them from behind and kills Satter. Then, he pursues Elena and Nacho, who go through the passages until they find a bunch of steps that can take them outside. As they move up, Elena trips and loses her needle, and Nacho is snatched by Israel. Considering to be there can be no way out for him, Nacho gives Elena his needle and relinquishes the steps, making the two men fall and bite the dust. Crying, Elena infuses herself, then, at that point, pushes the sewer vent cover toward the finish of the steps until she figures out how to move it and get out. She winds up on the opposite side of the regulation zone, so there are individuals, everybody gazing at the condition of her looks. A man attempts to inquire as to whether she's okay, and a lady gives her a coat. Yet Elena doesn't focus. She simply goes astray with a bewildered look all over. She's extraordinarily lost as far as she could tell, and doesn't see that she strolls by the person she should have a date with. He even calls out to her. However, Elena simply continues to push ahead.